is not fair to the witness, and it is not fair to the accused. You should credit Zerapi's evidence as establishing reasonable doubt about the SPO's claims. Next, the SPO cites no evidence in support of its claim that Thaçi was a leading figure in the LPK. No citation for that is provided at all, and the claim is disputed as unsubstantiated. Slide 120. The SPO claims that Thaçi oversaw the dissemination of public information, ensuring that it espoused the KLA General Staff's strategy as it developed. There is no credible information that Hashim Thaçi oversaw the dissemination of public information. In particular, the SPO has failed to establish, beyond reasonable doubt, that Hashim Thaçi had any involvement at all in the preparation of communiques and political declarations. No witness testified to that effect. None of the numerous books, manuscripts, notes, newspaper articles, and the like in the record contain even hearsay recollection by someone that Hashim Thaçi authored communiques and political declarations. In fact, in paragraph 1477, footnote 6234, the SPO is only able to cite two pieces of evidence in support of their claim that Hashim Thaçi had a role in the preparation of communiques. Slide 121. The first is Recep Salimi's SPO interview, wherein he claimed that Hashim Thaçi had some connection to Communique 59. Salimi's claims cannot be believed for numerous reasons, all of which we have outlined in paragraphs 236 to 241 of the Thaçi final brief. In his SPO interview, Salimi told the SPO that he has no knowledge, no personal knowledge, of who drafted any of the KLA communiques and could only make assumptions. Moreover, his claims about Communique 59 are uncorroborated, and Mr. Thaçi did not have any opportunity to challenge Mr. Salimi's testimony under cross-examination. Pursuant to Rule 140, the trial panel should therefore not use his evidence against Mr. Thaçi. Finally, we note that Mr. Salimi himself, in his final brief at paragraph 614, has acknowledged that he has no knowledge of who drafted communiques and that he was only speculating in his SPO interview. Slide 122. The second and last piece of evidence relied on by the SPO to prove that Mr. Thaçi allegedly had a role in the drafting and dissemination of communiques is an excerpt from a book written by Nuhi Batucci, in which Batucci writes that in late October 1998, Mr. Thaçi had asked Batucci to write a bulletin to international media and report that Thaçi had met with Burns, from which the SPO cites to an information note that was published by the Information Directorate on 1 November, reporting on the KLA's meeting with Sean Burns. And that is Exhibit P 303, the last page. You see that information note now on this slide. The document is entitled Information Note, not Communique or Political Declaration. It is very factual. It is a very factual report to media about the substance of the KLA's meeting with an international official. There is nothing related to so-called opponents or special warfare in the information note. And this document in no way supports the SPO's contention that Mr. Thaçi was involved in drafting communiques generally or ones that discussed collaborators or special warfare specifically. That's it. The SPO cites no other evidence that Mr. Thaçi had any role in the drafting and dissemination of communiques and political declarations. Moreover, even if the SPO could show a connection between Mr. Thaçi and communiques and political declarations, the SPO has failed to show that these communiques and political declarations were a significant contribution to any of the crimes charged in this case. and I will address the legal issue there later in my submissions. Yesterday, Mr. Halling appeared to suggest that Mr. Thaçit was somehow connected to a purported military police communique concerning Messrs. Descu and Castrati. That allegation is not made in their brief. The only specific communiques to which the SPO connects Mr. Thaçit are the ones identified in the footnote I have just discussed. Slide 123. Next, the SPO alleges that Thaçit framed opponents as threats and warned that they would face punitive measures. That's paragraph 484. But footnote 211, which supposedly supports that, is a reference to a section on Mr. Krasniqi. It is unclear to us how this section supports the claim that Mr. Thaçit threatened opponents, and we therefore have no material ability to respond to the claim and reserve all rights. Slide 124. Thaçit participated in strategic general staff visits to operational zones to formalize command, instruct commanders on special warfare, and align them with the targeting policy, ensuring field-level execution of the common plan. So says the SPO. This is quite a bombastic claim that requires you to once again dig into the footnotes to assess what this is about. And this is about the trips of the general staff, including Hashim Thaçit and Bislam Zarapi, to Shala, Lap, and Dukajin zones, which I have already discussed. The SPO has failed to meet its burden of proving that there was discussion of special warfare in these meetings with the zones for the purported purpose of, quote, aligning them with the targeting policy. Once again, it is unclear how the SPO can both admit that Bislam Zarapi is not a JCE member and that JCE members would not openly discuss opponent policy with him, and then also argue that he was one of the people who attended each of the meetings in the zone where, quote, alignment with the targeting policy and field-level execution of the common plan were ensured. If Zarapi's presence at these meetings didn't make him a JCE member, then they don't make Thaçit a JCE member either. Slide 125. Thaçit actively promoted the achievement of the common purpose through his executive authority as Prime Minister of the PGOK. That's paragraph 485. But nothing cited in this footnote supports the assertion. This is yet another example of why I encourage you to go through the footnotes yourselves before you accept anything that the prosecution argues in its brief. The next significant contribution allegedly made by Hashim Thaçit is participating in, facilitating, encouraging crimes in furtherance of the common purpose. And the first allegation is that Thaçit ordered KLA members to assist him in the commission of crimes. And for this section, I need to go into private session, Mr. President.
Private session, please, Mr. Court Officer.
Your Honor, we're in public session. Thank you.
You may go ahead.
Thank you. Turning now to the Chirez incident. If we could please have slide 145. It is undisputed that the parliamentary delegation in Chirez was detained for approximately 48 hours. For the reasons explained on this slide, detention of 48 hours cannot, in itself, violate fundamental international law. Slide 146. The evidence in the record shows that the detention was not part of a widespread or systematic attack against a civilian population. On the contrary, the KLA had military reasons to stop the delegation and question its members. You can see the references to that relevant evidence on this slide. If there is a reasonable doubt that the purpose of the stop was motivated by military objectives, such as a fear that the delegation had come unannounced to encourage surrender in a moment when Chirez was under attack, then this stop was not intended to further the alleged common criminal purpose of gaining and exercising control over all of Kosovo, and falls outside the scope of the SPO's JCE allegation. It does not matter if the KLA's intent to pursue a military objective lacked sufficient probable cause, because the improper pursuit of an intended military objective does not mean that the objective was a political one as described by the SPO's common criminal purpose. The next slide is not for public broadcast. Slide 147. The KLA's objective concerns are also reflected in contemporaneous documents, which you can see on this slide. At the 23 September 1998 press conference, and later in cross-examination, George Deadeye confirmed the KLA was concerned by the delegation's failure to inform it of its arrival. Okay. Slide 148, and this can be public. The KLA allowed the delegation to enter Chirez and speak to the people, just as it had previously allowed other parliamentary delegations in other areas. If the detention indeed were part of an organized attack against opponents, the KLA would not have permitted such visits or public speeches. And if there is a reasonable interpretation of the evidence that the stop was in pursuit of a military objective to stop the parliamentarians from encouraging disarmament in the middle of hostilities, then this stop falls outside of the JCE's common criminal purpose. Moreover, the SPO on Monday tried to suggest that a communique issued on 18 September was somehow connected to the Chirez incident. However, the KLA did not know there would be a visit to Chirez 2 days later, and initially allowed the delegation in and to speak to the people. The 18 September communique could not have significantly contributed to the Chirez event. Slide 149. The KLA had not taken any actions against LDK representatives in Chirez before 20 September 1998. Again, it is implausible that the KLA carried out a widespread attack against the political opponents while leaving the local LDK activity untouched. The next slide is not for public broadcast. Moving to Hashim Thaçi's role. Deadeye testified he did not see Hashim Thaçi in Chirez at all. Similarly, the only KLA figures W03832 could identify in Chirez were Gani Kotsi and Sabit Getsi. While W03832 subsequently changed the testimony, this subsequent testimony is not credible. And you can see reasons for why that is the case on this slide. The next slide can be broadcast to the public. Contemporaneous documents confirm that the KLA's